Betrayal is rarely an explosion. It is usually a pattern that finishes what it started quietly. People who feel shocked by it are not weak. They are simply focused on emotion instead of sequence. When you step back, betrayal loses its drama and becomes a signal that was forming long before the moment it appeared. This is not about becoming cold or suspicious. It is about seeing movement before impact. Once you understand that behavior follows pressure and incentives, not promises, you stop reacting and start observing. Calm replaces fear, and clarity replaces surprise. Nothing here is accidental or personal. Trust is often treated like a moral badge instead of a practical decision. People are taught to give it freely, then feel betrayed when it is mishandled. The problem is not trust itself, but how it is used emotionally. Blind trust asks nothing and notices little. Structured trust watches behavior, timing, and consistency without accusation. It does not assume harm, and it does not ignore risk. When trust becomes deliberate rather than emotional, it stops being fragile. Protection does not come from suspicion or walls. It comes from clarity, boundaries, and patience over time. That difference changes everything that follows. Machiavelli is often mistaken for someone obsessed with manipulation. In reality, he was focused on precision. He observed human nature without resentment and planned around it without illusion. His ideas are not about controlling people, but about controlling exposure and expectation. This approach removes paranoia because it replaces guessing with positioning. You do not fear betrayal when you understand alignment. What follows are not tricks or defenses. They are mental shifts that reduce surprise and increase leverage quietly. Each one changes how you stand in relation to others before anything goes wrong. Calm foresight replaces emotion long before conflict appears. Betrayal rarely comes from enemies standing far away. It usually comes from people close enough to watch your routines, your moods, your expectations. Proximity creates familiarity, and familiarity creates leverage when it is unstructured. When someone has unrestricted emotional access, they learn what moves you, what weakens you, and where your blind spots live. This knowledge does not require bad intent to become dangerous. It only needs opportunity. Many people believe loyalty grows as intimacy increases. In reality, intimacy without limits often replaces respect with entitlement. The closer someone feels, the more they assume permission. Small assumptions stack quietly until boundaries no longer exist. At that point, betrayal is not a decision. It is a drift. Seeing this clearly changes how you interpret the past. You stop asking who turned against you and start noticing where access was given without thought. This shift removes bitterness and replaces it with observation. Emotional discipline begins here, not by pulling away from everyone, but by understanding that closeness must be shaped. Without structure, affection becomes exposure, and exposure always carries risk. That risk grows quietly, unnoticed, until consequences appear sudden only to those who never examined the process with patience and detached awareness. Machiavelli understood that access is never neutral. Allowing someone closer is always an exchange. Whether acknowledged or not, you offer visibility, information, and influence over your emotional state. In return, you expect alignment or goodwill. Problems begin when access is granted without terms. What is free is rarely valued, and what is unlimited invites testing. Controlled openness is not secrecy. It is selective clarity. You decide what parts of yourself are available and when. This decision is not cold. It is respectful to your own position. When access is paced, people adjust their behavior naturally. They listen more carefully. They measure their actions. Distance, when intentional, creates gravity. This posture produces quiet authority. You are not demanding loyalty or affection. You are setting conditions where respect can exist. Those who understand boundaries move closer with care. Those who resist reveal impatience. In both cases, you gain information without conflict. Subtle distance does not isolate you. It protects your center and keeps relationships balanced, steady, and harder to misuse. This balance lowers emotional noise and reduces the chance that closeness turns into entitlement over time. Because limits communicate value without explanation or force and keep intentions visible to everyone involved consistently. When access is limited, behavior speaks louder. People show their intentions not through speeches, but through how they respond to boundaries. Some become more respectful, others grow restless. This reaction is information. You do not need to accuse or confront. You only need to watch patterns form. Limited access removes the stage for emotional manipulation. Without consequence, constant availability, pressure tactics lose strength. Silence creates space where impatience surfaces. Delayed responses expose expectations. Small boundaries reveal how someone handles restraint. None of this requires explanation. Observation does the work quietly. This approach demands patience. Immediate clarity feels satisfying, but long-term safety comes from waiting. When you allow people time to reveal themselves, you avoid forcing truth out of them. You let it emerge naturally. Detachment here is not indifference. It is restraint. You stay present without over-investing, alert without reacting. Over time, intentions become consistent, and consistency is easier to trust than promises. This patience filters emotional actors from stable ones and keeps you from being pulled into unnecessary explanations or defenses. It turns relationships into observable systems rather than emotional negotiations driven by urgency, which preserves energy and sharpens judgment over time without creating distance or hostility in daily interactions. Controlled access works because it prevents emotional leverage from forming. Leverage only exists when someone knows they can reach you easily and influence your reactions. When access is measured, reactions stay yours. No one can rush you, corner you, or pull you into decisions through closeness alone. This does not mean withdrawing from connection. It means designing it. You choose when to engage deeply and when to stay neutral. This choice keeps relationships from turning lopsided. Balance removes the pressure that creates resentment on both sides. When expectations stay realistic, disappointment has less room to grow. The result is quiet protection. You are open without being exposed, warm without being available on demand. People interact with you based on consistency rather than emotional shortcuts. Betrayal struggles to form in this environment because there is nothing to exploit. What remains are cleaner dynamics and clearer signals. From this position, deeper strategy becomes possible, not through force, but through calm positioning and deliberate presence. This approach allows you to move forward without suspicion while staying insulated from sudden emotional reversals. It sets the foundation for sharper thinking and more stable alliances over time, built on clarity rather than hope or emotional momentum. Need is usually described as something emotional or personal, but in reality it is positional. The moment you need someone more than they need you, the relationship changes shape. This is not about weakness of character. It is about exposure. Dependency creates a silent imbalance that does not require intention to be used against you. It simply exists, waiting. Most people feel shame around need. They label it as insecurity or failure, then try to hide it. That reaction misses the point. Need is not a moral flaw. It is a strategic condition. When something you want sits in another person's hands, your behavior shifts before you notice it. You become more flexible, more forgiving, more patient than you should be. This is where betrayal takes root, not because someone plans it, but because leverage has already been created. Expectations grow unevenly. One side adapts, the other relaxes. When circumstances change, loyalty bends toward advantage. Seeing need clearly removes self-blame. It replaces embarrassment with awareness. Once you understand that need is about positioning, not emotion, you stop personalizing outcomes and start adjusting structure quietly. This awareness gives you room to breathe before choices narrow and consequences appear without panic forming. Power rarely announces itself. It shifts quietly when reliance becomes uneven. The person who needs less begins to decide pace, tone, and outcome without speaking. The one who needs more starts adjusting, explaining, and waiting. No threats are required. The imbalance does the work. This shift often goes unnoticed because it feels natural. People mistake it for generosity or patience. In truth, it is gravity. Attention moves toward whoever controls relief or opportunity. The more you rely, the more carefully you behave. The more carefully you behave, the less leverage you have. Nothing dramatic has to happen for this to matter. Small delays feel heavier. Small rejections feel larger. You start calculating reactions instead of acting freely. Meanwhile, the other side feels no urgency. They can change their mind, shift priority, or withdraw effort with minimal cost. Understanding this removes fear. It replaces emotional guessing with clear mechanics. Power is not about dominance. It is about dependence. When reliance is unequal, betrayal does not need intent. It emerges when incentives realign. Seeing this early grounds you. You stop chasing reassurance and start stabilizing yourself, which quietly restores balance before words or conflict are ever needed in subtle, lasting ways internally. Thinkers focused less on controlling others others, and more on removing vulnerabilities within themselves. Their strength came from internal stability, not constant defense. When your emotional balance does not depend on external approval or assistance, pressure loses its edge. You remain steady while situations shift. Self-sufficiency here does not mean isolation. It means preparation. You build multiple sources of support, skill, and confidence, so no single person becomes critical to your stability. This spreads risk quietly. When one door closes, nothing collapses. Your reactions stay measured. Internal stability acts like psychological armor. It absorbs shocks without hardening you. You can listen without needing agreement. You can negotiate without desperation. You can wait without anxiety. This changes how people interact with you. They sense steadiness, even if they cannot name it. As this stability grows, exposure shrinks. You share less out of need and more out of choice. Decisions slow down. Clarity improves. You stop leaning on promises and start trusting systems you control. Independence forms without cutting connections. You stay connected but not dependent. That balance keeps relationships clean and reduces hidden pressure before it ever has a chance to surface without announcing itself or demanding recognition from anyone involved. People who are not needed are difficult to betray. There is nothing to threaten and nothing to withhold. When someone cannot corner you emotionally, their options narrow. They must interact honestly or not at all. This simplicity protects you without effort. When you are self-contained, pressure fails to stick. Guilt loses traction. Urgency feels optional. Even disappointment passes quickly because your foundation remains intact. You are not scrambling to restore balance. It already exists within you. This posture changes how others behave. Some pull back, sensing they cannot control outcomes. Others become more consistent, knowing manipulation will not work. Both responses are useful. Neither requires confrontation. Your calm becomes the filter. Being the first to need invites compromise before clarity. Refusing that position keeps decisions clean. You do not rush agreements or accept uneven terms just to secure relief. Time works in your favor. Alignment reveals itself naturally. From here, betrayal becomes unlikely, not because people become better, but because conditions no longer support it. You are steady, observant, and unprepared. This state feels quiet, but it is strong. It prepares your mind for deeper strategy, where foresight replaces defense and position matters more than reaction over impulse every time. Everyone has a line they will not cross for you. It exists quietly, long before it is ever tested. This line is not a flaw, and it is not a betrayal waiting to happen. It is simply a boundary shaped by priorities, fear, comfort, and self-interest. Most disappointment comes from pretending this line does not exist. When reality eventually reveals it, people feel shocked instead of informed. Seeing limits clearly is not pessimism. It is realism without emotion. When you stop expecting people to exceed their nature, you stop feeling hurt by their consistency. Limits reveal themselves softly. They appear in hesitation, delays, excuses, and silence. Rarely do people announce what they will not do for you. They show it when convenience disappears. This information is valuable if you remain neutral. The mistake is emotional interpretation. You take limits personally instead of studying them. When you remove emotion, limits become data. Data protects you. It tells you where to stand, how much to expect, and what not to gamble. Quiet observation replaces hope, and hope is where miscalculation begins. This perspective keeps you steady, informed, patient, grounded, observant, realistic, and prepared long before pressure ever appears around you. Daily. Character is not revealed in grand moments. It is revealed in small, repeatable situations where effort is required but recognition is absent. Consistency under mild pressure tells you more than promises under applause. Small tests are not traps. They are natural points of observation built into everyday interaction. Do people follow through when nothing is at stake? Do they remain steady when attention fades? These patterns form slowly, but they are reliable. They do not require confrontation, explanation, or force. Only time, awareness, and restraint. Patience allows truth to surface naturally, without pressure, performance, or emotional interference over extended time. Judgment interrupts this process. The moment you label behavior as good or bad, you stop watching it clearly. Observation requires distance. You notice patterns without reacting to them. You let repetition do the convincing. Over time, consistency either strengthens or collapses. No confrontation is needed. Limits reveal themselves through reliability, not excuses. This approach protects you from emotional decisions and keeps expectations aligned with reality. It favors patience presence over intensity and clarity over emotion, allowing you to see who people are without forcing moments or manufacturing tests through time and ordinary pressure that repeats quietly across real-life situations daily. Machiavelli trusted predictability more than declared loyalty. Promises change with mood, fear, and opportunity. Patterns endure. When someone behaves the same way across different conditions, you can plan around them. This removes emotion from trust. You no longer hope people will act differently. You expect them to act consistently. Reliability is not about intention. It is about repetition. Words are cheap signals. Behavior carries cost. Machiavellian thinking values cost. When actions demand effort over time, they reveal commitment without needing reassurance or emotional language that shifts with circumstances or pressure from others in unstable environments where incentives constantly change unpredictably. Social life encourages faith in statements. Strategy requires faith in patterns. This shift sharpens perception. You stop listening for reassurance and start watching behavior repeat. Illusions fall quietly. You see who arrives late consistently, who disappears under stress, who stays aligned without praise. Predictability becomes calming. It removes drama and replaces it with foresight. You are no longer surprised by outcomes because you have already seen their shape. This clarity strengthens judgment and reduces emotional risk without requiring withdrawal or confrontation by aligning expectations with observable reality over time rather than hope or idealized narratives about others and relationships evolving. When you align expectations with observed limits, betrayal loses its power. Nothing feels taken from you because nothing unrealistic was given. You no longer ask people to exceed themselves on your behalf. You position yourself based on what they have already shown. This alignment removes shock. Outcomes feel familiar, even when they are disappointing. Familiarity is safer than surprise. This does not harden you. It steadies you, allowing connection without illusion and trust without surrender to fantasy or emotional demand over time that erodes clarity and creates unnecessary pain through false expectations placed on others without evidence or consistency shown. Clear limits create calm relationships. You know where you stand. You know what to rely on and what to secure yourself. This clarity removes emotional bargaining. You do not push people beyond their capacity. You adjust your position instead. Betrayal fades when alignment replaces hope. What remains is composure, foresight, and quiet confidence. From this state, you move forward unburdened, prepared, and mentally clear. There is no heaviness here, only understanding, balance, and a sense of quiet closure that feels earned through awareness rather than pain or dramatic lessons that linger emotionally long after events pass and end internally resolved. When you step back, these ideas merge into one posture. You are calm because nothing feels urgent. You are observant because you no longer rush to interpret. You are internally stable because your footing does not depend on access, approval, or promises. Controlling access keeps leverage from forming. Refusing to be the first to need keeps pressure from building. Letting people reveal their limits keeps expectations clean. Together, they create a quiet center. From this center, relationships stop feeling dangerous. You move without emotional spikes, and decisions slow down just enough to stay clear. This is not detachment from life. It is engagement without exposure. You trust yourself more than outcomes. That trust compounds. Over time, you stop scanning for threats and start reading patterns naturally. This maturity feels subtle, but it changes everything. You become harder to rush, harder to corner, and easier to respect without asking for it. Never being betrayed does not mean controlling people or predicting every move. It means removing surprise from outcomes. When you see clearly, nothing feels sudden. You know who has access. You know where you stand. You know what others will not do for you. Clarity replaces control. You do not tighten your grip on life. You loosen it because you understand its mechanics. This perspective is freeing. You stop replaying conversations and stop rewriting the past. What happened fits the pattern you observed. From here, reflection becomes calm instead of painful. You keep connection without illusion and distance without bitterness. The world feels less hostile, not because people changed, but because your expectations did. That is the real protection. When surprise disappears, fear follows it. What remains is grounded awareness, steady confidence, and a quiet sense that you are prepared for whatever unfolds next. Without urgency, you move forward patiently,